welcome to Read Becca. Today I want to wrap up my pick for the Booktube spin and the Translate-a-thon, Dark Constellations by Paula Oleksiak. So this is a translated work from Argentina. It is a book told in 3 timelines that ends in a near future sci-fi. So we start out in 1880s following a expedition into the jungle who are collecting rare specimens and artifacts. We don't really have a good idea of their purpose other than exploration. They encounter a mysterious tribe and are seduced by the women of the tribe for, it seems, some strange reproductive ritual. So this section is very short. We don't get a whole lot more than that to the description of their story. We know they kind of come back from this encounter, and there are mysteries surrounding whether or not this tribe that they encountered actually exists. Experts basically tell them that they in fact do not. So from there, then we jump into the 1980s. And again, we have this kind of reproduction focus with a woman who is having a fling with a Brazilian man. Turns out that she's a scientist and he's an engineer, and she finds excitement in not having birth control and ends up pregnant, surprise. And so she has her infant son and flees back to Argentina when things don't work out with this Brazilian engineer. He turns out, this boy Cassio grows up, so we follow him from the 1980s all the way through the early 2000s as he's growing up into a skilled hacker. So we see him even as a young teen being very involved in kind of higher level things than someone that age should be. It reminded me a lot of the classic movie Hackers, and the young boy that is kind of at the center of that, where effectively he is now in international problems and getting involved in criminal activity. So we follow him then. Once we hit the end of that section in the 2000s, he is going into more legitimate business. He's finding his way into entrepreneurship and tech startups. So we don't get too much more than that at the start of the 2000s. And then the final section, we have Piera, and it's in 2024, so near future. She has developed a technology called the BioNose. And the BioNose essentially can be placed anywhere to suck up DNA information out of the air. So that was her last project, and now she is coming to join Cassio's company, which is Stromatolon, I believe. It's a very long word. So it is all about interconnectedness in technology, and from the sounds of it, things never truly play out, but from the sounds of it, we get the understanding that the combination of DNA practices that the Argentinian government has put in place with the BioNose, with this project that's now going on, could mean some very dystopian things for the future of Argentina. So for me, it didn't completely conclude. The threads between the 3 timelines never fully connected. I really enjoyed that first expedition timeline. It was very weird naturalism, and I would comp this to Jeff Vandermeer, his works Annihilation or Born. It has almost that biotech feel, but not quite. Or Freshwater by Akwehi Mezi, where we have kind of a dark sexual undertone and a lot of surreal internal elements. So I think those were some of the things I liked about it. I disliked that it felt like it was too short. I mean, this is a pretty small book, it could have easily been twice as long and explored those things a little more, really teased them out. I actually did read a blurb. There are multiple blurbs out there for this. One of the blurbs that I read had elements that are not in the book, that are much more spelled out in that blurb than we get in the story. So I don't know if that was an editing thing or a translation thing, or if that blurb was just completely incorrect. But what was in that blurb would have been really interesting to read if it had been in the book. So I think that is the main downfall, is that I didn't see the interconnectedness. I didn't see as much explanation of how things were flowing through these timelines all the way from the 1880s. So I never actually got why the expedition was fully connected. There should have been some deeper reproductive element, but we never really get that tie-in fully. It seems the reader is meant to infer a lot. So if you don't like that kind of thing, I love the surrealness and the open-endedness. It could have just done a little more. Then as far as the writing, I loved the writing and translation on this. It was absolutely fantastic. So I think the writing all throughout is rich and lush, and especially the jungle scenes where you're getting this naturalism and the depiction of the flora and fauna surrounding everyone, and you really feel immersed. So actually in the middle sections, so let me point out that in the margins we have really cool natural art here. So I really enjoyed that. It's just a beautiful book. But in the middle section following Cassio, there are actually short chapters interspersed that are disconnected from everything else. And they're all maybe 1 or 2 pages. So they don't follow the narrative of his story, and it's not really clear why they're there. But I just want to read you one of these short chapters so you get a feel for how great the writing was. And it's, you know, almost poetic. Many moons since she last went to the surface, iridescence and scale, she bites at her own immobility. The lime green light climbs up toward the stones that bow before her. She can breathe, exist within herself, can fall toward the abyss she holds deeper still. A carapace begins to form inside her. She impregnates herself with parts others have left behind, her scales growing ever harder. When she emerges, if she ever does, she will be much stronger. She doesn't yet know what form she'll take. She has come from a river that is too warm, ever warmer, came in search of cool black water. She once watched a subterranean continent travel slowly far into the air, then bury itself entire in the caves. She awaits the signal. The thunderclap comes soon enough. The distant light flashes across the sky, unites with the lymph, feels itself explode. Science was not yet prepared for such cadavers. So that's the level of the writing in this, and that just compelled me along. So I really enjoyed it overall. I was hoping this would be a new favorite. The vein that this is in seemed like it would be, but it had just a couple problems. I do think this is the author's only sci-fi work, and others have been maybe historical and general fiction, but I would, based on the quality of the writing that I got here, I would love to pick up some other work by Paula Oleksiak, and I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like and subscribe.